Hey everybody, I'm Chris Metzler, one of the programmers here with SF DocFest. Um, we've been taking films from all around the world in the Bay Area and screening them for Bay Area audiences for the last 24 years. And it was really neat to kind of run across this film and submissions because it's very old school in the sense of like the sorts of films that kind of inspired us to kind of make the festival. So you just saw the really great film No Bad Takes, and we are lucky enough to have the director, Greg Roden, here. Welcome, Greg.
Chris, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Thanks. Hi, everybody.
Most definitely. And we're also lucky enough that Greg actually happens to be a San Francisco based filmmaker. So it's always neat to kind of champion local voices. So maybe a good place to kind of jump into this, Greg, is that um, what were you, how familiar were we with you with like Bill's works before starting the film? And what made you realize this was the kind of journey you wanted to go on?
Yeah, it's a great question, Chris. Turns out I was actually not that familiar with Bill and his literary genius and his canon of work. For those people that are not familiar with Bill's work, he's a real living literary legend, and he's the kind of author that can fill up an entire bookshelf at City Lights, a complete table devoted just to his books. And no matter what he writes, the New York Times is always going to review one of his books. And my connection to Bill was really goes all the way back to college. I read his first book of nonfiction. It was called An Afghanistan Picture Show, or How I Saved the World, that he published in 1992. And it was this really personal account, really raw story of how he'd gone over to Afghanistan and crossed over through Pakistan in the mountains, and he was really trying to help people and alleviate some of the suffering. And I just gotten back from documenting the Civil War in El Salvador when I was also very young, and Bill's book really spoke to me about this experience of trying to go somewhere in the midst of conflict and really help, and then realizing you're just kind of a burden, you're kind of in the way, and we both sort of failed. And that was my connection to Bill way back when.
Very cool. And well, given when you approached him about making the film, was he reticent at all, or like were there different expectations he had, or did he kind of see this as like something that was showcasing him, or was he kind of like more of like, hey, Greg, you're an artist, let's see what you make?
Well, yeah, at first, Bill is deeply private and he's not into being recorded at all. So he did not like the idea of this whatsoever. And so we started traveling together. Bill was doing a couple of articles and he just needed a driver. So he hired me to be his driver. And at the beginning, I was just taking still photographs to accompany some of his articles. So we were kind of, journalist peers, and we really clicked right away and kind of slowly developed a friendship. And then when I finally approached the subject of, maybe I could do some filming, Bill was very leery at first. But what he said was that because I had really earned his trust, he had said no to any type of documentary or films before, but for me, he would say yes. And I think the whole thing behind Bill agreeing to do this was he felt that he wanted to support me, like you said, as an artist. And if this would be helpful for me to be able to tell a story, he was going to be into it. But he had a very specific rules about the process of our journey and when I could film. And I'd always had to ask him for permission before I filmed, and his private life was off limits. So he was very leery of the whole process through the whole making of this film.
And during that the kind of journey of making the film, what were your kind of hopes or expectations, and how did that kind of evolve over the course of filming and your relationship with him?
Well, of course, I approach this, and he refers to this a lot during the film as some sort of kind of a TV project. And I kept trying to cue him and prompt him and direct him to okay, we're sitting here, and now it's a time for you to go ahead and open up and tell me something really compelling. And of course, every time I started to roll the camera, Bill would just zip it and clam up. And so I really struggled with how am I going to portray this compelling person in a really honest way without him opening up. And the only way that it really worked is that, Bill kept addressing me from in front of the camera and pulling me into the film. And ultimately, that was the journey. Was my expectation was I wanted to do a fly on the wall verite thing, kind of old school. And Bill dragged me into his world and he dragged me into this film. And so I ended up having to become kind of a character. So that was about the two of us. And he states this over and over. Not something that I wanted to do at all, and I was not comfortable with it. But that was my journey to kind of um, arrive as a writer myself in terms of writing narration into the film.
Okay, cool. Do you think like when you were starting to kind of film, was there kind of a like a visual or aesthetic approach that you wanted to take? I asked this partly because, obviously Bill's just this kind of very magnetic guy in his own way, but his writing is all, to me very, kind of visual. So like what was the kind of aesthetic that you wanted to kind of tell the story and filming wise?
It's interesting because the first thing that Bill and I really connected over was photography. He's a very accomplished photographer. He's done a lot of medium, a lot of large format photography. And so we had that in common. And so just the way that we looked at the world visually, I think that we could really connect over that. And so again, my idea was to just try to document or capture Bill. And so it felt like there was such limited opportunities to actually for him to say yes, you can go ahead and turn the camera on. And all I could do was just point it at Bill. And every once in a while I'd point out the window, but I was thinking, well, this is my time. Let me point it back to Bill. And I felt like I was, you know, back on safari in Africa, hunting cheetahs or something. And he told me once that he will, if he could make any film, he would make a nature documentary. So here I felt like I was putting Bill under the microscope and really studying him. And I had to do something different. But your question about the visual approach of the film, it has this very kind of Western John Ford kind of these big sweeping landscapes. So then when we go into to interview a lot of the unsheltered and homeless folks, took that wide angle lens and really get up close and just kind of settle and then let people be in those environments with folks, both Bill doing the interviews and then the people themselves, and trying to really just put a 24 millimeter lens and these big wide open spaces and getting up really close. It was the approach.
Yeah. Do you what when you first decided to kind of make the film, was there some like a special thing about Bill that you wanted to kind of share with, the audience members and things? Or were you just kind of interested in just taking the journey? I guess in the sense of like, was there something that you wanted to say with the film, or was it the experience that you wanted to have making the film?
I didn't really know, to be honest. I was just happy to be along for the ride and trying to learn. And I think I was really intimidated by Bill and his literary genius. And remember the first trip we took in my little pickup truck. I just thought on the way to pick up Bill in Sacramento, what am I going to talk to this guy about for 4 hours? And Bill has this way of getting people to open up. And he did that with me right away.
Mm.
And so I told Bill all about my childhood growing up in this town called Piru, where my dad had a small citrus orchard and what it was like picking avocados during high school. And of course, Bill pulled out his laptop and just started typing away while we were driving. And here I am just blabbing away. And it wasn't until much later that I realized that's Bill's real kind of superpower is his empathy, how to really listen to people
Mm.
and make people feel comfortable. And you just sort of don't even realize what he's doing or how he's doing it. And it was that process of observing Bill, really engaging with people, and really listening to help me to say, well, what do I want to say about Bill? And ultimately, at the end, it was really Bill's empathy and really his ability to walk in other people's shoes to really understand, how did they come to be who they are in their lives.
Oh, that's pretty wonderful. Um, so now that the film's done, has Bill had a chance to see the film and like, what's he think about it?
Yeah, Bill saw a rough cut. That was our agreement that he would watch the film once, and he signed off on it. And he again was very concerned about saying things inadvertently when the camera was rolling or having my phone even in the pickup truck. He was very, very sensitive about his privacy, and to the point where I'd have to stick my phone in the back of the truck and I wouldn't be able to use Google Maps or book a hotel or anything. And for me, it was really liberating also to really just let go of the technology for a minute. But Bill signed off on the film, and he doesn't like the way that he comes across on camera, and he doesn't want to watch it again. But he said he trusts me to present the film as close to what he saw. And the film has changed, a little bit in terms of the story, but all the footage that's in there is the footage that Bill has seen. And I think he's proud of the job that I did and the job that we did together. I've always said that I think Bill was kind of directing the film from in front of the camera by continuing to repeat the story of his novel and the character Matthew and the journey that we were on together, which is really this journey to discover America through the eyes of his protagonist Matthew. So I'm making a film about Bill writing a novel about Matthew trying to discover America, and there's these four parallel storylines that we were trying to weave together. And I think that Bill set it up very well, and hopefully I've done him justice.
Well, I think you definitely did, Greg, and really appreciated you sharing the film we're at SF Doc Fest. This kind of a special sneak preview before you guys start taking over the world with the film. So, really appreciate you guys sharing it here with the hometown crowd. And for those of the that the film kind of resonates with, I always kind of try to remind our audiences is that we're kind of like this is like seeing a band for the first time. We're like the grassroots street team, to kind of go out there and help spread the word. How can we continue to follow like the film's life and your career, and how can we kind of help spread the word?
Yeah, Chris, I'm super stoked to have been able to participate in the festival and everything that I've heard, and all the great films. It's amazing that you have 85 films this year, I think, in the
Yes,
festival.
crazy.
Unbelievable that there's so many talented people out there making films. So we're really grateful to be a part of this. And I think the best way for people to learn more about Bill and I and this film is just go to nobadtakes.com, our website. You can sign up for a mailing list and catch all the latest from the website at nobadtakes.com.
Awesome, cool. Well, thanks again, Greg, and thanks again for making a wonderful film.
Yeah, thank you, Chris, and thanks to everybody for watching. I really appreciate it.
Awesome, thanks.